Hey, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Seth Miranda, and I'm a pro photographer right here in New York City. You may have seen me on some other channels like Adorama TV, but I also have a Twitch channel where I invite some colleagues and peers and other photographers and just people I think have valuable information and just have a good time live on my Twitch channel. So if you want to join the chat and ask us questions right there on the spot and be part of the conversation, join us at twitch.tv/lastxwitness. But for now, just enjoy this chat. I'll see you later.
There it is.
Hey, we're live.
All right.
What's up?
This is like the floating behind me. Fucking thing.
Your
Get it
little
out of there.
Death Star? You have like a toy Death Star that like hangs
I know
out
it
behind
looked
you?
exactly like the Death Star.
It does.
Oh man.
It's my ball.
What's going on?
Snowball.
Everybody, happy 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Tuesday. We had to bring on a regular, Daniel Norton. He's always here and never joins you guys in the Discord because he doesn't like you. And I had to bring on, I brought on the legend himself, Joe McNally, because Joe needed a forum where he can say the word fuck.
Fuck yeah.
And there it
So-
goes.
Oh man, how's everybody doing in the chat? How's everybody going? Lo and behold, 5 seconds before we go live, Daniel Norton had to go get coffee as per usual.
I wasn't holding things up. The thing is that we're scheduled to go live at 5. I am there at 5.
Always
That's
a
how I
pain in
roll.
the ass. Joe, how you holding up, man? I feel like it's been long on everybody, but you know, I see you virtually every now and then now. We were just on Adorama, but that was very like tight and constrained. Now we're just kind of chilling.
Yeah, doing okay. I mean, I travel an awful lot. I traveled most of 2020. So the reasons to stay home are horrible. I mean, this is just an awful thing that's affecting all of us. But
Yeah.
I do like being home, so I'm trying to make the best of it. You know, Annie and I are hunkered down, and we're trying to think positive, stay positive, think ahead, try to plan for the future, bounce around ideas, use the time as best we can.
So Photogy in the chat is actually an ENG news guy, and he's saying doing good out in the world, shooting a jail because they're letting inmates out due to COVID.
Oh,
All right.
That's-
Yeah, I mean,
it's a good time to be in jail.
prisons are hotspots all over the country.
Yeah, I think what they're doing is they're evaluating people as far as how long they've been in there serving their time, what their record is, like how their behavior has been, and are they a danger to society to be let out, if I'm correct on that. But I mean, this is a weird time, man. I don't think anybody knows what to do really, and we're all just trying to figure it out, I guess. I don't know.
Daniel, where are you? Is this your home I'm looking at here? You're upstate,
Welcome
right?
to my home, Joe.
That's nice.
Thank you.
Yeah,
The
he has a tiny house in the woods.
Yes. Now notice that I have influencer lights behind me.
It's true. Notice Joe's lighting. It's probably like 10 stops over above his head. And on the far right, we're looking at a nuclear blast that's happening outside his window.
How many speed
Thank
lights
you.
are there?
Thank you. Yeah.
How
yeah.
many street lights- how many-
I see those Christmas tree lights behind you there, Daniel. Did Brandon Wolfel come by?
Oh, jeez.
Seth told me that every good influencer has these, so I got some.
So
Okay,
I actually
alright.
have them up. They just aren't working. They're just dead. I don't know. I have the carcass of like influencer lights just
So they're trash.
dangling.
So what is that? I haven't heard about that. Influencer lights. Is that a thing?
Yeah, they're this. They're a bunch
Follow
of
my
freaking
link.
fairy lights. They're the fairy lights that,
oh,
you know.
okay.
So they
you
make the
see it-
bokeh ball. Oh, the bokeh. Oh, the bokeh.
Yeah. When I grew up with a camera, we used to call that the out of focus shit in the background.
Yes.
Just kind of, FYI. But it's nice.
Oh my God.
I can never understand. I'm glad you just said bokeh because I've always, well, not always, but I've been between two camps, I guess, because I've heard it said bouquet.
Bokeh or bokeh. It's bokeh if you're from Canada.
Okay.
I don't know what it is.
I thought if you're from Canada, I thought that would be bouquet, eh?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, Vanessa's in the chat.
That's it.
Holy
Oh,
shit.
Vanessa.
Oh no, Vanessa just said, "Oh, the real Joe is here." Yeah, like this is the Joe we know. This is the Joe.
Yes.
Except he's not beating us at this time. He's just
Is that
talking.
Vanessa Joy?
Yeah. Yeah,
Nice. How
man.
you doing, Vanessa? You all right? They can't talk to us, right? They can just like, you look at that list and you're picking out questions and stuff like that, Seth?
So when Joe, this is called a chat room. They started in 1988 and they still
Okay.
Kids
exist.
talk. Imagine
Thank you.
texting.
Thank you, Seth. Here, let me see if this works. Okay. All right.
How did I know that would usually be a crank?
Oh, because it was built in when, like 1900? Like,
See, that I know how to work. So go fuck yourself.
holy shit. Yeah, so the chat room is live and they're watching us and they're just reacting and asking questions. So yeah, you guys in the chat can ask anything you want. You got us three right now. Joe's going to stay up past his nap time and we're going to do this. So it's
Man, Cherry Witch is really throwing it down.
Why, what happened?
They've subscribed for 3 months.
Oh,
You go,
Cherry Witch, thank you so much. Cherry Witch is really awesome. She has some very interesting stuff on her Instagram. It's very macabre and I dig it. So thank you so much, Cherry Witch. I appreciate it. Why don't we see this side of Joe in the other videos?
What do you mean?
Well, the other videos are like what, PG rated,
Yeah.
And Seth is definitely not PG rated. Let's face it.
Definitely not.
I keep it PG when I have to. I mean, I can totally curve everything, but I think it's important for us to have a forum where we can be ourselves and still represent what we represent for the companies we represent or whatever. But we still got to be ourselves at some point. You can't always be on. But Joe, you're always on. Like I feel like every time we see you, you're doing some kind of video, some kind of live stream, some kind of stage talk, some kind of booth demo, some kind of video that you have to put out there for another company. Like, how exhausting is that?
Well, it's not exhausting at all, really, to be honest. I enjoy the company of photographers. I enjoy the photo community. I always have. Certain venues have shifted, for me in the course of my career. I grew up as a newspaper wire service photographer. When I started, and I was, I was not a photographer. I was hired by the New York Daily News a million years ago. When I was hired by the News, they had 57 staff photographers. They have none now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the landscape has changed dramatically. This is the landscape, what we're doing right now, the internet, obviously. And now with the COVID-19 crisis, the Zooming and the conferencing and all of that, but that still has been part of our lives, smaller part of our lives. But this, the photo community, speaks to each other now a lot via the web. And so, yeah, I got involved in that. I enjoy teaching, I enjoy that interaction. And it's very gratifying, when you do teach and somebody comes up afterwards and says, boy, that really spoke to me. Or a couple years down the road, you'll bump into somebody at a convention or whatever. And they'll say, that workshop that I took, it really helped me start my business. And now my wife and I have a small, portrait business in wherever. And that was what you did was helpful. So you always want to feel when you're teaching that you have some sort of reverberation that's a positive one.
Yeah, that's what Dan says all the time too.
Did you say that? I stole it from Joe.
There's a question in the chat. Robbie Keene is asking, Joe, is your tendency to use multiple speed lights over big monolights because you want to sculpt with light with full control in small areas as opposed to washing with light?
Good question. Yeah, when I first learned how to use speed lights and really dove in, if you will, it was actually the occasion of my first cover story for the National Geographic. And I think I mentioned this the other day, maybe Seth, we maybe talked about it. I can't remember. I was working, the contract was for 6 months out in the world and I traveled by myself. I had no assistant and there was a component of science and some tech involved there. So I had to learn how to light small and fast. And that was when I first kind of took the dive into small lights. And it's just always been a component of the way I work. Small lights, sometimes big lights are wonderful. Let's just face it, but sometimes, it's too much light. Daniel, you would agree with that, right? Sometimes you put up a big light, it just, it nukes the room. It deprives it of character.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes I'll put one up just to have it in the background to confuse people. But yeah.
Yeah. like America's Top Model, they always bring in like 10 truckloads of light that they're not going to use just to make it look like it's bigger.
Yeah.
No, that's true though. You're right. I like how you said that, Jai. The character of the room is important when you're shooting on location. When you're a location shooter, or even shooting a set that's supposed to look like a location, kind of getting that character from it. When you go in somebody's house, generally it's not lit with a giant 5-foot octagon. It's lit with lots of small sources. So it kind of makes you think like that.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean,
the one of the main things as a location photographer that you're striving for, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, is that you want it to look effortless. You want it to look like the light that was there already before you came in. All you do at that point is you tweak what exists, you augment what exists, and maybe you put a little bit of a nice detail into it. But essentially, you leave well enough alone, especially when you're confronted with a scene that might already be interesting looking. You don't want to Bigfoot your way through something.
I think it's also easy to kind of want to spotlight everything, right? Like you kind of just go like, I want that to come up. I want that. So if you're starting from darkness or just like the ambient light as practicals rather than like actual sources, then you're like, well, let me get the face here. Let me get the underneath the table here. And then the underneath the table could be a green gel or, like it's so, you're such an open license when you're able to shoot like that.
Sure. That's why I've always, liked the idea of what you just said, Seth. You set a certain level, a certain baseline, and then you spike it. It's like a cocktail or something. Like you've got this thing, it's shootable. You work to get it shootable, and then you do accents. I call them the luxury items. If you've got the time to do it, well, go ahead and light that wall that's 30 feet away. In the warehouse or something like that. Put a little character into it. Put depth into it because, I'll I'll be Sister Mary Consolata here. You're responsible for every pixel. Just like Catholic school, man. So you light through the foreground, the middle ground, the background. You want to entertain and delight the viewer. I always say this, your eye is a hunter. It seeks pleasure. And so when you light something in a vibrant way, not overlight it, do it subtly, but you're actually leading your viewer through this circuitous path that is your photograph and also represents the way you think.
Yeah, I think we always talk about that, right, Dan, during the critiques. It's like you're trying to put a sentence together in an image, and every choice you make is a word. So you're just trying to convey it the right way. You can make that mood of that sentence however you want, just like the light, so that's the way I look at it.
Seth, if you light the way you think, oh, that would be a dark journey indeed, wouldn't it, Seth?
Well, yeah. I mean, I do like dead chicks. I mean, so it's like...
How do you do clip thing so we can save the clip? How do you do that?
They're clipping. They're going to clip.
They're going to clip that one.
Joe, how frequently do you abandon your concepts mid-shoot because something reveals itself as you go along? Or do you tend to stick to your original concept, massage what's not working until you get a good result?
No, I pivot. If something's not working, man, it's not working. You guys know, right? You get that stone cold feeling that you're going off in the wrong direction. And it's, if you can, and that's not always true because the pressures of the location, the subject's being difficult, the timing, whatever it is, you just have to make the best of a bad situation. I've tried to make the best of many bad situations. Yeah. And sometimes I've actually failed at that and they've just remained bad situations.
But wouldn't you say like the key is kind of like understanding where you're going the wrong direction? Because there's a lot of times if you don't spot that it's not working, that's the problem. That's the actual problem.
Sure. You do have to develop a gut, when you see those first images. And the beauty of digital is that you do see your images. Back in film days, you were like pulling stuff out of the air, like, oh, I don't know, man. I don't know what this is going to look like. But now you can actually get a a read on the fact that you better pull it back in and go a different direction. And that is a gut call. That's a gut call.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What about you,
sometimes
Dan?
it's hard if you're on an assignment or something and there's a client there for you to just be like, let's start over, because you put you in a really tight spot. But if you know that it needs to happen, then sometimes you got to do it.
I've
Yeah,
actually seen Daniel chuck softboxes across the room. I just want to let you know that.
Awesome. Yeah. It's the equipment's fault, Daniel.
Always. Or the assistant.
Bad softbox. No, you have to be articulate and defend your position. I did the FedEx marketing campaign for 5 straight years, and we were in Italy, and they wanted me to shoot. Sometimes, I had a really great art director. She was really good. She would try to be a buffer between me and the client. And this is how it goes sometimes. The very powerful people at FedEx would attend the shoot, and they'd bring out lawn chairs for them, collapsible chairs, and they'd sit there and they'd watch me shoot on the street. I was like today's movie, and the art director came up to me at one point, and we were in a situation, says the client wants to know why this is taking so long and why it's not working. And I looked at the art director and I said, because they're trying to jam a square peg into a round hole. And she said, well, you need to tell them that. So sometimes as a photographer, and I walked up and I explained the situation, and they let me do kind of a different version of where they wanted to be. So sometimes as a photographer, you have to be very powerful and articulate about your case. Like, this is not working because. You can't just like throw up your hands and say to the client, "Oh, this isn't going to work, man." They're not going to, they're not going to like accept that, excuse me, we're paying you money to make it work.
Yeah.
But if you want to introduce a path that is slightly different that you see is going to result in a better visual, you just have to be prepared to defend that and articulate it.
You guys ever fire a client?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Do tell, Daniel. Daniel could barely get that out. He's like, I remember that.
I mean, yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, the thing is that when you're in business for yourself, whether you're a photographer or anything, you hopefully are at the point where you're not desperate for every single penny, And I mean, even if you are, if that client is just putting more of a drag on you that's going to hurt you, then you got to get rid of them. I mean, that's just the way it is. It sucks, but.
Yeah. But we've all had those great clients. I've had, great clients and still do. And I, just, say a novena for these clients, I'm like, please stick with me, because they give you some creative freedom, and they're understanding and fair-minded and all that sort of stuff. So there's the flip side of the ledger too, where you find those clients that you just want to throw your arms around, you know, and that's a great thing. But yeah, I've walked away from a shoot. I've walked.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it only happened in a severe way once, where it was actually a shot many years ago for Forbes magazine, where I was doing power lunches. These very powerful people in Forbes wanted to profile. They wanted them to identify their place of preference for lunch. And so this one very powerful person, who shall remain unnamed, liked Café des Artistes on the Upper West Side, just off of Central Park. And the motif of Café des Artistes is these naked nymphs, these woodland scenes with these naked fairies flying about. It's very fanciful, nothing pornographic at all. I mean, this is like old school woodlands, scenes. And so I lit something from the sidewalk and got a booth, and it was very nice. And she walked in and she said, I'm not going to be photographed with those naked people behind me. And I said, well, this is the motif of the restaurant, and you chose the restaurant. Well, I'll be photographed in the bar. And I said, there's nothing in the bar but a brown wall. And it's very dark in there. I'm not going to shoot you in there because it's not going to look good. I said, well, I won't be photographed with these. And I said, well, I'm not going to photograph in the bar. So I guess we're going to agree to disagree here. And we just packed up when we left. I didn't shoot a frame. And thankfully, the editor backed me up.
Wow. You couldn't have posed them so they're like, they're covering boobs here and like covering like an ass there. Like
I could have put like black gaffer tape over nipples and stuff like that, Oh, God. So, it happens, sometimes it happens, but I've been really blessed. And I know you guys have as well, because you do really wonderful work, where there's that, that intersection of a good client with a talented photographer, and really good stuff happens.
Yeah, and I think it's also important that if you do lose a client, you don't freak out too heavy, and you try to keep things cordial, which I just learned like in the last few years with what I went through. You think it's over, but it's never really over. If they're still in business, people change roles there, art directors change, editors change, all sorts of things change. But sometimes they couldn't find what they needed, and you come back, like all sorts of stuff. So I think that's important.
Yeah. It lingers though. The sense of failure lingers, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is a relationship business, so you want to build those relationships and in the best way possible. And if somebody isn't right for you, I guess in a sense, you got to get rid of them. I mean, it's just the way it is.
And sometimes it's the wrong time.
Every time I lift this coffee cup now, Seth, I think about your coffee cup. And I realize that I have to get a much more interesting coffee cup.
I don't know what you're talking. What are you talking about? Is your game weak?
I've got coffee cup envy here.
I thought that was Fernando's coffee cup.
I don't know. Like, I don't know, Joe. It looks like you have two metal dicks on either side of you when you hold it up. It looks.
So you got your Venom cup. Is that your Venom cup?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was in transit last time we spoke.
Oh, yeah. I got it. Yeah. This was actually someone on my Twitch channel, Christian, sent me a link for it, so I bought it. And I disinfected it, and it became part of my collection.
So some of us don't need to compensate with fancy mugs. We just have a simple.
You just need influencer lights in the back. Yeah, you just need to make that background worthwhile, right? You mook. What are you kidding me?
Well, I mean, the contrast.
The contract. Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about influencers, because there's a lot of things that are trends right now, right? Let's talk about that kind of stuff. Joe, you come from like the real legacy of shooting from film, the grind of photojournalism. Dan, you've had like a monster commercial career as well. And now we're in this era where if you're self-publishing, which is basically what we're doing every day, right? Instagram, YouTube, whatever, you can basically get known pretty quick if you stay consistent with it. Is this something that's hurting an industry? Is it a new way? Is it a new direction? How do you vet people that are out there that are louder than some others? Fascinating, gentlemen. So,
yeah. I think that's
influencers.
Daniel, that was like a really great question Seth had. What do you think?
Oh, fucking Joe. This is what happens when you leave the door open. Joe McNally comes in.
Seth just wants us to bash influencers because he does it every day, and he wants to feel, yes, if people are wearing tight pants, they're not good. Or whatever you say.
We live in this, Greg Heisler, who I'm sure you guys know, has amazing work, amazing photographer. We used to talk about this, he's a professor now at Syracuse University, and we talked about the whole digital thing, and Greg said something that has always stuck with me. He goes, Joe, this was going to happen whether we liked it or not. And so the thing is, adapt or die or fade or do something else. So I actually think the influencer scene and the Instagram scene and I refer to it as the kind of the democracy of digital, the fact that it is available to everyone is actually a really good thing, because there's more people taking pictures, making pictures, publishing pictures than ever before. Is it all good? No, but it wasn't all good back in magazines either.
No, that's true.
So there's just more volume. That's the thing. And you turn on if you play this game and you turn on those social media channels, man, it's like a standing in a fire hose.
Have you been like snubbed by a company for an influencer at all? Have you like lost a job to someone that's just popular or something like that?
No, I don't think an influencer. I think thankfully there's some older art directors or company brands that still embrace a photographer like me. Lots of folks won't, because there's an age situation there where they're going to go with somebody younger, rightly so. That's cool. There are influencers out there who are doing some really interesting work. Like I was joking earlier about the Christmas lights and Brandon Wolfel. Well, he's built an astonishing platform out of essentially I think doing largely, I don't want this to, it's not the same thing, but it's in the same direction. There's a dreamy feel, et cetera. People go to that site because they can anticipate what he's doing. And he's built, a certain, well, a certain following, an amazing following out of that. But I also really like, I revel in the fact of something like Instagram because, like Mark Peterson is on Instagram, and Mark, I've known his work. I don't know him all that well personally, but I've known his work forever. And now, it's like back in the day, with magazines, you'd have to wait for the magazine. Like one of my heroes was Jim Stanfield at the National Geographic. And Jim's retired now, but you'd have to wait for the magazine to see Jim's work. Now, and same thing with Mark, he was a magazine shooter, but now he's out there all the time on Instagram. I can click in and just see a feed and just like take a look at some wonderful pictures. It's out there, people are publishing literally every day. And so I find that to be very vibrant, and let's face it, time, I grew up, I've shot cover stories for Time, Newsweek, National Geographic, Sports Illustrated, and Life.
Joe's
Life is
flexing. You see that? Oh, I'm Joe McNally.
back in the day. But here's the thing: Newsweek is gone. Time Inc. is gone. Life is gone. National Geographic is pretty much a shadow of what it used to be and really emphasizes television. Sports Illustrated is gone for all intents and purposes. So there's your message right there.
There's your bright future, kids. Enjoy it. Holy shit.
The publishing aspects of being a photographer now are just vastly different. And you have to kind of get in that flow and embrace it and absorb it and literally, honestly, have some fun with it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
you guys are much more in it than I am, right? I mean, you guys are young guys coming along.
Yeah, but Joe, you are like an influencer. You just happen to actually be an influential person who's done stuff instead of being a person who's called an influencer because they have a mass following and that's all they have.
Well, yeah, I know you and I have talked. I mean, there are some folks out there who shall remain nameless who kind of rant and rave a lot on the internet, and they trash people, they trash cameras, that to me is really tiresome. That's an indication of probably lack of talent. If you can't succeed in shooting your way to a successful career, well, then step off to the sidelines. The old phrase, the easiest thing in the world to do is stand on the sidelines and criticize those who are actually playing the game.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's when we throw the term out there, influencer. I think I don't want words and sense mouth, but what it really means by that is these people that kind of, they might have an interesting Instagram feed or whatever, but they kind of present to be more than they are, which can be kind of a pain because they'll teach or propose to teach certain things, and what they're saying isn't true. And then when people that actually know what they're doing speak, it's like they just look at you like, well, what? No, this person said, and it's like, well, that person spent 6 hours retouching that photo and didn't actually light it, so they're not actually showing you how to do it.
No, but they're telling people the answers they want to hear. The answers they want to hear, which sometimes are simpler, but aren't the truth. And then it's like you have to retrain the crowds, and it's exhausting on us, I think. I mean,
yeah.
Well, you guys have the beauty and benefit of being in this mix, but also having solid ground to stand on because you both shoot well. At the end of the day, this comes down to, can you shoot? That's like the bottom line. Where this is photography. Can you really shoot pictures consistently and well? It's pretty simple to make one or two good photographs given the technology at our fingertips. But turning in a worthwhile body of work year after year after year that has a certain editorial seaworthiness, that's actually really hard to do.
Do you feel a pressure to stay at a level?
Sure. I mean, there are some clients who will, just literally kind of expect the moon, and they hire you because you think you can give that to them. So the pressure's on, especially when you're doing a big budget shoot, because money is hard to come by with clients now. It's not, people aren't just throwing money from trees to photographers. So when somebody actually really commissions you and puts money on the line, I feel it very strongly. I feel like, yeah, I got to deliver,
Yeah.
I got to go after this. I do my research, I tune myself up. I think about it. I obsess about it. I'm pre-visualizing all that sort of stuff. It's angst ridden, it really is angst ridden, you know.
Tyler Hart Photo has a question. Do you think photographers are less secret about technique methods since they can sell plugins, brushes, or is it some other reason?
Can you run that question by me again?
Yeah, I'm looking. Actually, I'm kind of confused by it as well. I just after reading, I'm like, wait, what?
Well, I
Do you
think I think what he's asking is, do you think people are giving away like a little bit so you'll buy the rest of their crap? That little taste.
Oh, that's not my area to comment on, because I just don't
Yeah.
You don't have any
know.
presets, Joe?
I
There's
don't
no
have
Joe
any
McNally preset.
I can honestly say there's no presets that I know about,
Because I heard if
Instantly
I
adds
buy,
extra.
wait, I'm sorry. I thought if I bought the Joe McNally softbox, it'll look just amazing no matter what I do. I just put the Joe McNally Elastolite box in there, and that's it. I won.
No,
Oh.
for it to look amazing, you have to buy 4 of them, Seth.
Oh yeah, of course.
That's the thing. Then that's the ticket to amazing right there. I mean,
I have like 4 of them in here somewhere. I mean, I have 2 knockoffs too that I got for $5.
Oh
Yeah, I think the
man.
issue with presets is that, and I say this a lot, so I'll say it again, is that presets only really work well if you shoot the way that that person shoots. So, because they're designed around a certain way of shooting. So
Yeah.
they're kind of useless. I mean, most of them are semi-useless unless you're going to shoot in the same way that person shot. So,
Or and if
that's
you're
my
shooting
thought.
like I think we talked about this too. If you shoot for like a film simulation or like a great color grading, you shoot for that grading. You don't shoot and then hope the grading works after. You kind of have. It's like choosing a film stock. I mean,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how they work best. So, I mean, I don't necessarily recommend buying a bunch of random presets, except that they can give you a place to start from. They might be useful in that sense. You plop them in, you look at it, doesn't work exactly for you, then you tweak them to make them yours. That might be a reasonable reason to get presets.
Yeah, I think we kind of forget that people don't have a forum like a photo 101 class, to like share the work and see someone else's point of view with the same tools doing something. Like you're kind of stuck in your own world these days, it's isolated.
True.
Yeah, true. I think one of the things that, again, I apologize, guys, because this is really kind of ancient history. But the really great training aspect of being a newspaper shooter was that you had to come back to the office and dunk your film. It was a wet darkroom. And so everybody would be coming back and they'd be slopping their film on deadline and writing out captions and giving each other a tremendous amount of grief, and they would look at you as the young kid and you would get the extraordinarily large, portion of that grief. But in that was learning, I mean, I would, in the daily news, they would project your negatives. The editors were really good at reading in reverse. So they didn't look at contact sheets. They would project the negs because a contact sheet would slow you down. So you'd go right from a Versamat, strip it into acetate, go into the editing room. The editor would pop up your black and white neg, and like an extensive critique, I'd have stuff up on the screen there and somebody walk in and go, whose shit is this?
Nice.
That was like elaborate critique, and then it would be like, punch this, darkroom ectomatic processing, 8x10, slop it in some hypo into the wash, dry it, and put it into a pneumatic tube with a caption bonded to it, circle them, put it in the tube, goes out into the newsroom, gone. Very unceremonious. You developed a thick skin and sharp elbows really, really quickly. That was a great training ground. Those are largely gone.
Yeah, I don't think some people think there's like these rock star moments that happen. There is none. You got the shot. You did your fucking job.
Yeah, it's a process. It's not like, somebody taps you on the shoulder with a magic wand. I mean, every once in a while you'll get that really stellar picture, maybe, and that's like, the angels are on your shoulders on that particular day. But I always say this, with the truly great photographers, the Gordon Parks, Carl Maidans, Alfred Eisenstadt, when you go to a show or a retrospective of their work, what do you see? The same 30, 40, 50 pictures every time. Why? Because in the lifetime of a truly great photographer, they shot maybe 30, 40, 50 really, really great pictures. And out of those, maybe 5 are the stuff of memory. This is hard to do. I hear photographers sometimes say, well, this is, I think, my most iconic frame. I'm like, dude, seriously? It's good. It's good. So it falls, well short of iconic. You're not even within the same.
Do it. Go for it, Joe. Do it. Do it.
All right, Joe. I don't say that often. Come on.
Wait for you to McNally this, Joe.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for this to McNally.
This is a Hail Mary from iconic, dude. Just let it go. Get over yourself. Keep working. That's it. A good photograph. You know what a good photograph is? When you make one every once in a while. A good photograph is an incentive to keep working.
Yeah. It keeps you going. I think me and Dan share the same kind of story where we had editors throw our film out. We just right in front of us. Was that? I mean, I had that? Did you have that?
I had film thrown at me.
Oh,
the Larry DeSantis, the UPI. And that's when I first started messing with Flash, because I wrote about this a little bit. I used to send my tracks into the UPI newsroom, and they had a horrible Versamat machine, and 2.0, 2 feet per minute was 1600, because Versamats were like, it was like a I don't know, a mulching machine for your film, basically, and you'd stick it in one end and it would go like this through the chemical, and then come out dry. And so, but I wanted a little extra guts to my film. So I would tell them, I would mark on my caption bags, run at 1.8 feet, which was a real pain in the ass, because here's the new kid, this green asshole, and he's marking. And so the technician has to go into the back of the machine and crank it from 2.0 to 1.8, because this little inconsequential prick is putting his little thing in the patch. What a pain in the butt I was. And so Larry set me straight. I shot a job so badly that he chose 3 rolls. He took all 3 rolls and he crumpled them into a ball. And it was sitting in this acetate ball on his desk. And as I walked towards his desk in the UPI newsroom, he stood up, picked it up, and threw it at me and hit me in the chest with it. Told me to get the hell out and not come back until I learned how to use a flash. He looked at me and he said, "What is it with this 1.8 garbage? Get the hell out."
And if that didn't happen, we wouldn't have the speed light king of the world over here.
Oh, I'm not king of anything. I just, you rock and roll, right? I mean, this is a blessed thing to do. It really is. I mean, even on your bad days, just think about lots of folks who are making a living indoors. We get to go out into the world and exercise a certain level of our imaginations. What a gift.
Have you looked at Daniel? He hasn't gone out in the world in I don't know.
I was just outside.
That's because he's got the black coffee cup. It's all very dark with Daniel. It's very dark. Look at the way he's dressed.
Right.
No flannel.
This is an official Daniel Norton shirt.
Oh boy.
If you
That's
buy it
nice.
on my
I like that
channel, it says,
God, you're such an influencer. Holy fuck.
I know, you got to buy my shirt. Don't talk, Seth. You kill my. You don't need lights, old man. You have 512, whatever this ISO, 51,200 ISO. I wore that for Joe. You don't need lights. Come on. You got. 5,
Where did you
000?
get that T-shirt? Did you commission it?
I made it. I'll get you one.
Awesome. That's
the best.
Awesome.
The best was out of nowhere in the middle of I'm not going to say where, but the screen comes up with one of Dan's videos and a photo comes up. I'm like, man, that looks so dark. And he goes, "You don't need lights, man. It's a Sony." Like being such a condescending prick.
Yeah, I am. And that's what I wanted to put on the shirt. But then I decided that if I ever wore it anywhere, Adoram would be very upset.
Oh, Jesus
that's
Christ.
true. That's true. Yeah.
So, Yeah.
Well, can we talk about the time that you were in the studio, Joe, and we were filming for Adorama, and you were shooting the pinup shot for the character series, and we're all standing around you, and you're doing all this crazy shit. Every time you took a shot, you looked at Daniel till Daniel was like, okay with it. And Dan looked right back at you. He goes, I don't know, Joe. I'm waiting for you to McNally this thing. Like it was never good enough. And that's how we paid the gauge. I'm waiting for you to McNally this shit.
And you did.
I know,
the V-flat sideways. He had that V-flat sideways.
Oh yeah,
Remember?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. I remember that. Yeah,
That's a McNally thing.
And he's like, yeah, I stole this from another guy. He's like,
I did. I can't remember where I saw that or heard about it, but yeah, it's like tip the V flat over and use it as a wedge to light the background. Yeah. All right.
And there you go. That's it.
Yeah. There you go.
He's like Steve Vai watching the young kids play the guitar and then taking their fucking riffs. It's
I mean, that's how we learn, right? As we see people do it, or you know, that's a big way to learn, anyways.
I think sometimes
go ahead.
No, go for it.
No, but you pick up stuff, you know. I mean, I oftentimes do a fill skip off the floor, you know, just a little bounce off the floor to kind of radiate a soft light upwards. I learned that from Garth Vaughn. Garth Vaughn used to be Greg Heisler's full-time assistant. Greg taught it to Garth, and then when Garth started working for me, he taught it to me. And now I've taught it to Andrew Tomasino, who's a good young photographer down in Pennsylvania. Do you guys know Andrew?
Yeah, I know Andrew. Tattooed up. Yeah, that kid. I know him.
Yeah.
He's got like the boy band hair going on. He's got the
all of Joe's guys have boy band.
You always make sure you have good looking assistants because you always need like a model out of nowhere. You're like, give me a Barbie doll looking guy to like be my assistant just in case I need a model on the fly.
Yeah, we have had a good run of good looking assistants, that for sure. But a lot of it, they're doing well. You know, Drew Gurian is doing real well in
Drew's
New York.
it.
You know,
holy shit.
John Cospito's doing really well. You know, Mike Grippy, you know, Andrew. They're a good bunch of guys. We've been really blessed with the studio family that we've had around for quite a number of years now. Very lucky in that regard.
I think also being around people, you don't just pick up stuff, but you remind yourself of things you have done like a billion years ago, but don't put in your game now. Like, you know, techniques or like gear you haven't touched in a while. Like, I mean, every now and then Dan pulls out something like, oh yeah, those fucking things exist. I got to start using those again.
Well, every photographer's life or closet or garage is littered with stuff that they just had to have, right? And it turns out to be useless garbage most of the time. Yeah. And it evolves into useless garbage oftentimes quite quickly.
I'm living in the middle of it. I'm living in the middle of useless
one thing, right? It's like you need it because you're doing this. And then after you're just like, well, I'm not going to use that again, really. But I never get rid of anything because you never know.
Yeah.
That's like my grandmother. You just channeled my grandmother. You never know. Keep it. You never know. You know. Hey, yeah, no, there's all those underwear are full of holes, but keep them. You never know.
Jesus Christ. If you guys in the chat have any questions,
that's in my basement.
Oh my God. I don't know. Like, I used to live next to a flea market for a minute, and every week those guys knew I'd buy the weirdest fucked up shit. And I keep saying, I got jars of teeth, I got gas masks from all over every era. I mean, I don't know. Like, every time I look around, there's something crazy. I got a whole pile of machetes. Every time there's a vintage camera, I'm like, they knew that I was gonna buy from them. So I have like all these fucking old cameras. Like I keep telling people this was made with a shovel. I had to clear it the fuck out so I could sit here. How many times on this channel have I pulled something up off my fucking walls? Oh, Dan, I found this. You ready for this? Oh, I showed it to Vanessa. When
he stands up and says he's going to pull something out, I get nervous.
Well, I'm talking about my dick. It's not what you think. It's my dick. It's not what you think. It's not what you think. So I a long time ago, there was an abandoned building. We built ramps in there, right? So I actually Polaroid emulsion lifted the walls, and then they were going to demo it. So I went back in there and I cut it out of the wall. Look, rest in peace, Polaroid.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was like,
oh, geez.
Dude, how fucking cool is that? So that's what I did back in the day. Oh boy. All right.
Yeah,
cool,
rest in
man.
peace Polaroid, rest in peace Kodak, right? Talk about changes on both sides of the fence, not only in publications, but also in the folks who supply us with technology.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, how hard was the digital shift during your time in your career when you were
Oh, it was
switching over
easy.
from film to?
It was easy. It was easy.
No struggle.
No, it was a camera. I mean, the D1X was very similar to an F5 in the
Okay.
look and the feel of it, and I didn't jump on the D1 because I was still kind of like, a little old school, this digital stuff, D1X came out and it really looked like it could produce really good quality. And it could. This is, of course, generations ago now. And so given that camera, the first time I really shot, oh my God, the first time I really shot digital was a Kentucky Derby back in like, I don't know.
Look at Dan's face.
2001 or something like that. Lucas Gilman, photographer, a friend, had to show me how to make a folder on the desktop of my computer.
Holy shit.
I mean, I didn't know, but it didn't
we had to show you that
deter
before we started. Before we went live, we were showing you how to do that.
me. But it didn't deter me from walking into the National Geographic about 4 or 5 months later and proposing I shoot the first digital story in their history. And they bought it. I had been shooting digital at that point for less than 6 months.
And it was like 4 megapixels.
Actually, I used the argument, the D1X, forgive me here, because I'm not going to get the numbers right, but the D1X had an interpolation thing that could bring you to like a 60 megabyte TIFF. And I actually used those numbers. I didn't really know what a TIFF was, but at a meeting at the National Geographic, I said, I can give you a 60 megabyte TIFF. And the editor was like, wow, that seems fine. I mean, that kind of thing, and the fact was we were all digital neophytes back then in lots of ways. I mean, I certainly was, but it was a camera, go shoot some pictures with it. I didn't care what was inside it so much. I liked the little movie camera on the back of it, the LCD. I was like, oh, cool. Look at that, so I went off and I shot this story. I shot, didn't shoot a scrap of film, didn't shoot, no yellow boxes. Geographic was used, for years and years, mountains of yellow Kodachrome boxes coming in the door. Now I was, downloading cards and stuff like that. My editor was looking on screens, and it actually saved our butt because the story was closing, and my last shot was the B-2, and I was in Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, I believe it is. And I was up in a T-38 and I shot the B-2. We were doing racetracks around the air base, just doing training missions. It was a very calm flight. And I shot this picture of a B-2, kind of a pale, sinister silhouette. And I was able to download the pictures that night, send a JPEG to my editor, who then presented the story the next day, and it ended up as the lead photograph in the whole story. And I was like, at that point, I was like, this digital stuff really works. Who knew?
You got a future, kid.
Yeah. Hey, stick with it. Maybe you'll do okay.
Actually, speaking of film, can we just talk about, remember that day that me, you, and Fernando, we were walking and you told us a story about how like you got the film from here, processed here for the 9/11 project thing and everything. Can we talk about that for a little bit, about how that went, where you got people to donate all the resources and stuff?
Yeah, my old lab, US Color. I went to them. I pulled every chalk, every relationship, every wish list, every favor I could, because Time Inc. had given me $100,000 to fund the camera. So I didn't take a fee because I knew the camera itself, the giant Polaroid camera, was going to consume that dough. Because every time I clicked the shutter in the giant Polaroid studio, it was $300 a pop.
With people that weren't used to modeling.
Right. And you couldn't focus the camera. You had to focus the person. And there's 2 technicians inside the camera. The camera's the size of a 1-car garage. I'm on radio to them, and I'm pushing a Totolite, or the assistant is, into their eyes of my subject. And then the two technicians inside the camera are looking at the film plate, which is basically a wall, you know, because the original image comes out, it's 40 inches by 80 inches. And when the catch lights got their most crystalline, they would say, okay, stop right there, because I'd be outside listening to them and they'd say, okay, tell your subject to move 2 inches back.
Jesus.
And then they had to hold that, because then I had to put a cap over the lens. There's no shutter in the lens, and go black in the studio because we were shooting camera obscura. And it took about 30 seconds for the camera to spool up. And they'd say, okay, we're good to go. I pulled the cap off the lens, and I had an RZ2, a Pro 2 with a motor bore-sided underneath the giant Polaroid lens, which was about 12 inches in diameter. So I had the RZ right below it. And the RZ was wired into the flash system. So I'd punch a cable release on the RZ, having pulled the cap off the giant Polaroid, flash, I'd get a simultaneous dupe. I'd get a 6x7 transparency and a giant Polaroid of the exact same instant. And so I was building up a lot of 120 film. So I went to Kodak and I said, give me 120 film for free. And I said, okay. I went to US Color. I said, you're going to process all this stuff for free. And they said, okay. I went to Pro Photo. God bless them. You know, I went to Pro Photo. I said, I need a whole bunch of lights. I need them for free. Because I knew the camera is going to chew through that money. It sounds like a lot of money, but it goes like that. We were in the giant Polaroid studio for 3 weeks.
That's nuts. Wow.
So I had to kind of work that out, because the book that ended up raising money for the 9/11 Relief Fund came from the 6x7 transparencies, because a 40 by 80 positive is not impossible, but very difficult to scan that, right? You got to do it on a giant flatbed. It's a specialty item. That was going to be crazy. So I knew I needed transparency film.
And you've been storing these giant Polaroids yourself for a while, till recently, right?
Well, yeah, I had to maintain a museum level of storage, because Polaroid is a sensitive material. And when they get framed, each of these giant Polaroids are about 300 pounds. So Jesus. I was storing 24,000 pounds of photography for the better part of 15 years. And that was like having another mortgage. You know, it came close to breaking me on certain years. But then, you know, I stayed in touch with the museum. They're good people. Jan Ramirez is an amazing lady. She stuck with me through this whole process. And eventually we engineered a deal where they took the giant Polaroids, trucked them upstate to New York, and they're in a museum quality house in upstate New York. They took over the bill for the storage, which was, God bless them. And then we entered into a long-term arrangement where they're going to acquire pieces over the next 10 years. And then at the end of that 10 years, I'm just going to donate the whole thing.
Wow. See, that's a legacy. That's legacy. That's insane.
Well, the important part to me, the emotional part to me, because I've been with this, you know, as we all have. I mean, 9/11 is a day that will never fade. But I've really been involved, you know, since that time, and I've been involved with the museum. And because I donated the entire collection, it had been valued at a certain level, so that the museum agreed to put Annie's and my name on the wall of the museum. So our names are together, which is really important to me, that Annie and I are together, and our names are on the wall of the museum as sustaining members. You know, we're not the upper tier, the founding level. Those are corporations that donated, you know, tens of millions. But the collection was deemed to be valuable. So we donated it, and our names are together and will be so forever.
Wow.
That to me was very emotionally important, having come through that maelstrom that we all went through in 9/11 time.
Yeah, 9/11. I mean, I thought I was going to get drafted as soon as I saw it. I just started college, I think, and it was. I kept thinking that this is going to change everything going forward, and to come up with an idea like what you did, to do it the way you did, shows a level of maturity as far as processing and what you could bring to it, not just photojournalism wise, but historically and a piece, a time capsule. I think it was next level thinking and ability. So it's just amazing to me that we even have that, that we even have these Polaroids.
The best thing remains the people,
Yeah.
And the friendships I have to this day. Sadly, we lost Danny Foley just recently. Danny found his brother's body, Tommy. Tommy died when Rescue 3 truck responded to the call. All of the members of Rescue 3 died that day. Tommy went down and helped find his brother's body. He came into the giant Polaroid 2 days after, I think, and he posed, and then his sister Joanne came in and posed. And I'm still in touch with the Foley family, and they just lost Danny due to 9/11 related cancer. Jeez. And that happened about a month ago. So the idea of 9/11 ever being kind of this historical footnote for these families, that's just not possible. 9/11 is still very real, very vibrant, and the effects of it, the repercussions are being felt to this day.
Yeah. So. Oh boy, that was heavy.
But yeah, so why don't you cycle us to something more? So
yes,
how many pixels are in that camera of yours?
No, I mean, but it's important. But this is important because it's easy for us to forget about that. The kid that's 18, grown up on Instagram, doesn't know the level this can get to, the weight that this actually has socially, in life. It's not just fucking photos sometimes. It's beyond that. And this is the weight that you tell your stories with. A lot of people don't ever have the luxury, not the luxury, but like the privilege of being part of something that intense and deep and woven into actual history. I think we're losing some of that sometimes.
Well, I think the ease of photography and the ubiquitous nature of it does, there is a carefree sense, and that's probably a really good thing, most of the time. But at the underlying aspects of this, the fact that we're documenters of our time, our lives, that's important. That remains important. It was important back, with Matthew Brady, and it's important now.
There's a question in the chat. What are the ways photographers or things new photographers can speed up the learning curve to have more polished portfolio, headshots, portraits, and whatever? What's a way to kind of fast track the learning process? I think we're actually super fast, being that you can shoot it and in 3 seconds look at it and go, here's what's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, digital is a great learning tool, Daniel. I mean, you're a formidable educator, as you, Seth, as well. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I used to teach lighting, for instance, at the main photographic workshops back in the day, and I was showing my class Polaroids.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was tough.
Yeah. No, it's true. I think, to my 2 cents on that question is that, and this is actually something I see a lot, because people will ask me very specifically, they'll be like, I really want to shoot portraits, but I don't have somebody to pose for me, or I really want to shoot food, but I don't have professional food. Just shoot something. Like anything that you're shooting and really paying attention to doing is going to help you move forward. So if you want to be a portrait photographer, but right now you can't shoot portraits, shoot something, shoot food, shoot whatever. I mean, I think developed a lot of skill in lighting and stuff because I assisted every kind of photographer that I could. There were lots of people that were like me that wanted to be fashion photographers that only assisted fashion guys. I assisted food, I assisted news photographers, I assisted everything you could possibly think of. And that really helped me. So I think doing more stuff just in general will help you develop faster, because you have to learn different skill sets, to use different types of equipment.
So when I started doing FX and character stuff, no one really was doing that for me to assist, right? So the way I actually taught myself anything was I took a fucking teddy bear and I said, if I can make this look creepy with light, I can fucking do anything, right? And I learned how to like make the fur more textured, less textured, give it some contour, not contour, give it context, give it an atmosphere, even though there was no atmosphere, make it look animated, even though it wasn't animated. Like, then you take that and go, well, I did this 3 nights ago. Fuck it. I just have a model instead, that instead of me going like this with a book under its arm, I can fucking, have them move their arm instead. But yeah, I totally used a giant teddy. It's still sitting over there. It's sitting right the fuck there. Gerald is right over there. Is right.
You should continue that series and make like birthday cards out of it for parents who are really twisted about their children, like Seth Miranda's evil teddy bears. You know, here,
Hey, man.
here, Johnny, have a nightmare. You
You
know,
know what? Maybe I will do a live demo with that teddy bear. Fuck it.
You
I've
should
done
do
the
it.
white
I wanna see that.
mannequin forever. So
hey, you know, speaking of photographers being, you know, what
fuck
Daniel
it. I'm
was
gonna go
saying,
get
like,
that teddy bear. Fuck you guys. Fuck you.
Go away. We don't need you.
yeah, Seth
Hey,
has
Jeff.
left the room.
Finally get rid of that
Uh,
asshole.
What you were saying about, you know, I'm a portrait photographer, but I haven't got somebody to shoot portraits of. Photographers are pretty ingenious. There was a New York Times story just this past week about Larry David, you know, and, you know, the Seinfeld, you know, creator and writer and notably irascible, you know, guy who makes fun of everybody and nothing at the same time. And the photographer for this was in the New York Times. I think his name is Jake Michaels. I cited it in my Twitter feed. Had to do a very innovative thing. He had to photograph Larry David, make portraits of him, but he couldn't go in his house.
Oh shit.
So he did a great job. He's outside his house, and Larry David, of course, is a funny guy. He's playing along with him. So he's at the window, he's at the doorway. He's using the graphics of the house and the windows and all that stuff to make socially distant portraits on a real job for the New York Times. And I thought to myself, well, that's photographers at work. You know, we find a way, we find a solution, you know? So what's this bear's name?
Gerald. You know how many times I had to wash
you
him?
wanna see Seth's bear?
You know how much? You know how many times I had to wash blood off of this fucking thing? It's like,
Wow.
Jeez.
wait. There's still a price tag on him from 1,000,000 years ago. Oh shoot.
What is
15
that?
bucks.
Oh,
So, yeah.
He looks a little weary, you know, Seth, like, you know, leave me alone with the blood and the special effects, please. Don't say bad things to him about me.
oh
Come
boy.
and play with us, Joe.
See, right there. That's a creepy postcard right there.
Yeah.
You know,
That's the moment.
there we go.
It's been documented now, guys. That
Yeah,
moment.
hockey mask on Gerald the bear. You know,
He protects me.
Seth's version of Where the Wild Things Are. I think that would be a really interesting book. You know,
That would be cool. You know, I always wanted to shoot something where the wild things are, but it's hard to do it on a practical effects level when the heads are like huge and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. Has there been anything that you wanted to shoot that just couldn't happen? Like there's just like a concept that's just a bit too far out of reach. Has there anything like that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you know, I have a kind of a funny imagination, you know, and I think in comic book style, you know, I guess, I don't know. And sometimes, you know, I look at Lynn, our studio manager and producer, and she'll like, her eyes will just get like, and she's like, look at me and go, you know, you're never going to get the money to go do that, right? You know, no one's going to fund that. I mean, it's really swell you had the idea, but let's talk about something real, you know? And yeah, so of course there's things rummaging around in my head that if, you know, somebody was foolish enough to fund, it would be really, you know, I think a fun project, but yeah, you know, that's fuel for the fire. Because if you're ever kind of out of ideas, if you're ever out of like that thing, I wish I could do this. If you no longer feel that, then maybe it's time to hang it up and do something else.
Tank is throwing money at the screen, he says. He just wants it to happen. Whatever you're trying to do, he just wants it to happen.
Yeah. Like the old Hollywood days, I guess. They used to throw money at some of the auteur directors. You know, just, well, Coppola, right? At Apocalypse Now. I mean, that was just evidently the studio just kept sending money.
Jesus.
And the shoot went on forever. It just on and on and on.
What about you, Dan? You ever have concepts you just couldn't get through? You couldn't get up? You couldn't get the resources?
No, not really. I mean, I don't do such you know, high concept stuff as you guys do. I'm more down to earth.
No, you just shoot 5 fucking Elvises in the middle of the fucking desert with a $5,000 modifier from Broncolor, you fucking dick. Like,
Well, I mean, that's nothing compared to what Joe's talking about.
Yeah, Joe,
I mean,
what about that desert shoot you did? What about that one with they built a mirror stage for you in the middle
Oh
of the
yeah,
desert with a ton of mirrors? Like that must have cost
that's
like
awesome.
crazy.
yeah, it did. Yeah,
There you go.
that was one of those things I spoke of earlier where you're really kind of nervous because you have to deliver for the client and you're not sure how it's all going to work. And you already spent the money on the set before you even take the cameras out of the bag. So you are in it. You know, that old, I don't know if it's an Irish expression or not. It's in for a penny, in for a pound. You are done. You are in, and you have to make this work. And you know, I'd worked with mirrors before, but you know, I hadn't worked with mirrors like that. I hadn't built a set out of mirrors in the middle of a desert.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull that up actually.
Um,
Uh,
yeah, no, that was. But Nikon stepped up. You know, Nikon was a great client at that moment. You know, I suggested this thing. I riffed on their kind of advertising slogan. You know, the slogan I said slogo. That's a combination of slogan and logo. Just FYI. Um, and
so this
the
is what we're talking about, just so everyone
yeah,
knows this
yeah, there it is.
craziness.
Did we
Is it
lose
going to
Daniel?
load?
We just lost Daniel. Daniel,
We lose Daniel
Daniel,
a
are you
lot.
there?
Oh, we did lose Daniel. I bet you he put his camera on battery and it ran out. But this is the setup. I mean, this is nuts.
Yeah, I mean those blue bins are filled with water because they're the ballast, they're the weights for the mirrors. Because out there in the desert, the wind whips up and you've got like basically a wall of glass. You know, it was pretty crazy. Really great set people in Vegas, you know, and we were able to contract with them and spec it out and design it. You can see that's not an easy thing to
No
put together. And also, you see the cars off in the distance. The mirrors
cars.
reflected everything,
Yeah,
right? You
and
know,
you. It's reflected you shooting it. I mean,
yeah. So we had to be like this picture here that was like you know, an interesting deal to engineer, you know.
I can't believe
And
it.
that's out of camera. You know, we did retouching. I'm not going to tell you we didn't retouch. We retouched the model's skin and stuff like that. And there was a seam because the biggest mirror we could get was not big enough for the entire floor. So we had to butt two mirrors together. So there's a
Ah,
seam in the floor and that got retouched out. But
okay.
essentially, and also the thing about that picture, the big light flare that you see,
Yep.
that's not the sun. That's a
That's a light
that's a Profoto 2400 watt second unit. The sun is actually behind. See the middle two mirrors? See the seam in the middle? That's where the sun is.
right here.
Yep. But I
Yeah.
had to govern the set with my own really massive pop of light. So that 2400 you know, is really cranking.
It's a raw head.
It's a raw head. Yep,
Yeah.
that's it. Raw
And then
head.
this is kind of more of an insight to like the seam you were talking about.
This was our first day, which was kind of unsuccessful. You know, single light. Obviously, when you're reflecting everything, you want to keep it as simple as you can. That's Manu on the left and Dasha on the right. They're both headline performers on the Las Vegas Strip every night, and what they're doing here. They are. See the booties on Manu. You
Right
know,
there.
he's out there and he's a dancer. He's an athlete, so he's trying to get a feel. You know, you know, here I am. I'm like, yeah, would you mind dancing on glass? That's A breakable and B slippery. How about that,
Yep.
fellas? You know, here we go. Yeah.
In the heat, right? In the desert. I mean,
Yep.
look at
In
this.
the heat.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Crazy. Shooting a strobe right into a bunch of mirrors.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, I was also blessed with these folks as talent, right? Because they are just amazing. Like Manu is an amazing athlete. Dasha is a former Olympic athlete. And, you know, she's, you know, the amount of athleticism and talent on display every night in the Vegas shows, like the Cirque du Soleil shows and whatnot, is phenomenal.
With the mirror in the mirror reflection, did you see any loss of like color quality or accuracy or shift in anything from like image to image? Like I see it's warmer over here.
Because that's what it's reflecting. It's reflecting the sunset in the distance.
Ah, okay.
So you're
Nice.
dealing with this wild world where it's not really what you're seeing through the lens. You're seeing these mirrors, which are then seeing something else,
Mm,
right, in the distance.
yeah. Yeah. This is really cool, man.
So
What a stress fest this must have been before you figured it out, just trying to get through it.
oh, completely stressful. Completely stressful. Yeah.
Even this one. Ozzy in the mirrors.
That's where it all started for me. That
Yeah.
was old school. That's a film shot. That again comes out of camera. That was Ozzy Smith, the Wizard of Oz. So I wanted a magical portrait of Ozzy. And so I didn't have him in the picture. I just had his reflection. Because they used to say, and this is where your editorial kind of background is, they used to say that he was so amazing in the field. He was a Gold Glove. That he looked like he was playing shortstop from 5 different positions at once. Hence, 5 different Ozzies.
Very cool. Is this what started? And then you took this idea and was like, "Oh, this is what started the idea for the desert shoot."
Yeah, I mean that Ozzy shot was way back in the 80s. You know, there's Howard Simmons, who went on to have a wonderful career as a New York Daily News staff photographer for many years. Howard had done assisting with Gregory Heisler, and then he was freelancing for me, you know. Yeah, if you go down to the next one, you'll see how the magazine ran it. They cropped out the biggest mirror. They ran it on the
Nice
contents
job.
page. Yeah.
Nice job. Oh, you can never control what a client does with the shots.
Yeah, no, it gets you. That's Keith Hernandez. Now, speaking of an influencer, he's got this cat. He's got, he was a big time Mets player, and he still lives on Long Island. And I think his cat's name, I might be wrong here, is Haji. And Haji is an internet star. Like Keith goes down to pick up his mail, Haji is sitting on his shoulder. And so he's turned his cat into a social media influencer.
Oh my God, Joe, this is ridiculous. Just fucking, oh, look at that. Wow.
Yeah, a couple of people debated me, came back and hard on the internet and said, this wasn't real or stuff like that. So I pulled out the chromes.
Nice. Medium format chromes too.
Yeah. RZ.
Nice. I wish I never owned an RZ. Dan has one. Or did you sell it, Dan?
No, I still have it. Yeah.
I always wanted one of those.
Yeah, it's a great camera.
It really is. I used a Blad for a while, but I had a trouble focusing a Blad. And then I rented the RZ, and I instantly fell in love with the bellows focus.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, the focus is great. Also, not dealing with the square. The 6x7 is great for magazine format.
Yeah, and then also you had a frame that you could drop in. You could buy 6x6 backs for the RZ, and then drop a frame in your viewfinder, and you had 6x6. So it was a more versatile camera.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And it shot the Polaroids with the little corners. Oh, so good.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Best Polaroids out of an RZ.
Yep. With an RZ style Polaroid, you could kind of judge from the Polaroid what was happening. Yeah. So.
You guys have anything else in the chat?
You had to learn too with Polaroid, because Polaroid had nowhere near the detail that film would be. So if you looked properly lit in the Polaroid, you were overlit on film. So you had to dial it back.
Yeah, exactly. Right. The Polaroid had to look a certain way. It's not exactly the same. That's why I sometimes say that, because, when I tell people, when you're looking at the back of your camera, you have to learn what that really means, because it's not 100% accurate. Same thing with Polaroid. You learned how to light to a Polaroid. It wasn't perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I didn't plug in. I turned off my power strip that had my case air.
Told you.
Yeah. So now we know how long the case relay will charge the camera with no power coming to it. That was a pretty long time.
Yeah, it was. I had 45 minutes on the last time I did that. Joe, what was the most lights you used on a shoot, says Patty?
Oh, Lord, I don't know, honestly. I honestly don't know. I've done a couple of very foolish things just because, they asked me to do it, and it was a job, so, and I got paid for it,
The lighting of the plane, right?
I lit an Air National Guard plane with Nikon SB26s, I guess it was, or something in that era. That Nikon wanted me to use, trigger eyes, photo eyes. That were built into that unit to show that you could light a long ways. And so just kind of one of those things. I was like, whew, all right, and I think we got to 40-ish, 50-ish, somewheres in there.
And some of them were just there just to trigger the next light. It wasn't even there to like create an effect on the exposure, which is what's crazy about it.
Yeah, back in the day, I mean, you guys know you had to set up relay flashes to trigger other flashes, to trigger other ones that are going to actually trigger the light that's going to be actually have an effect in your photograph. It was daisy chain.
What a mess. Senior Taco 12 is asking, where can I see your work from the 9/11 project?
You could go, if you go Joe McNally /9/11, there's a website devoted to some of the work. At the museum, they have some smaller prints. They don't have the Polaroids up. And, it's around on the web. The out of focus, geez, listen to me, photo speak. The out of print book, you can still get off Amazon through booksellers. Faces at Ground Zero.
Nice. Cool, man. Does it still go to help the fund?
No, that fund got closed off, or at least the mechanism of it back in the day. I've kind of lost touch. I mean, Time Warner, Time Inc. doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So all that is history.
Cool. All right, Joe. This has been crazy, man. I can't believe I even got you on here, man. Thank you so much. This is nuts.
Thank you guys.
I hope you had a little bit of fun. I know you don't get to say the word fuck a lot, so I figured this would be the time.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's fun. It's always fun talking to you guys. You give me some grief and I give it right back. And it's the basis for a good relationship.
Yeah. Well, so everybody that's in this chat is in like a Discord channel where they have like a 24/7 conversation going on, asking questions, sharing work. And I'm trying to bring people on here that they may not be exposed to or have like, how many times have you seen like a photographer's work or heard their name a million times, but you never got to an idea of who the person that is doing those shoots? And I think it's important that people hear us talk, like get our mindsets, know what kind of people the photographers are, because we're filtering the shot as we're doing it from the people we are and our point of views.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean,
whatever you just said. I don't know. What
didn't you just literally describe an influencer?
Fuck off. Fuck off. God, so I hate you, Dan. I hate you, Dan. I hate you, Daniel. You will rue the day, Daniel. You will rue the day. Yeah,
you guys should reach out to, it would fit in with you guys. You'd had a fun conversation. Is Andrew Tomasino. He's a young guy. He's out in a small market, where a lot of photographers are and kind of struggling with this. Might be a good chat.
He's got a really cool shooting space. It's like an empty industrialist space. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Joe, I'm gonna end the stream, but the Zoom call will stay up. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, consider hitting follow. It'd be great. We'd love to have you. If you're new to the channel, hit the Discord, and you can find this new guy, Joe McNally. I don't know. He's probably on Instagram somewhere. He figured out how to use his phone last week, so we're very proud of him. He's
He has a rotary cell phone.
Okay, once again, guys, here we go. Ready?
Someone clip it.
All right. Well, stay well, guys. Have a good night. Thank you to everyone who tuned in.